Yeah, thank you very much to Pare for the invitation to speak on this. As they introduced me, I'm with the patient advocacy organization, Global Healthy Living Foundation. Some people know us as Creaky Joints, which is a more common and exciting name for our organization because we have the website and patient community. And we also have something called Arthritis Power, which is a patient research network. And that's where we did this study is the registry, Arthritis Power. And with special thanks to Pare and especially to Martin DeWitt, who was really instrumental in helping me think through and helping us think through setting up the network and patient involvement and participation, and with gratitude to the speakers today, especially Cora Lee and Laura, about this kind of broader focus on patient engagement and participation in research. I also want to acknowledge one of my co-authors here, Shilpa Venkatachalam. She's a colleague at the GHLF and also someone who's living with inflammatory arthritis. Was instrumental in helping think through what are the important questions, the research questions for this, and how to phrase the survey that we implemented in this case. Before I get into it, what we hear a lot in our patient community and just anecdotally is people talk a lot about their RA blood work. You know, they'll mention, well, I'm seropositive for rheumatoid factor or seronegative. So they'll in some ways define themselves that way a little bit. Or they'll talk about their CRP or their SED rate. So they'll, say, well, it was down at an 8, then all of a sudden it shot up to 33 milligrams per liter. So people are conscious about it. But when I looked in the literature, in the research literature, there was really nothing there about patient perceptions, people living with rheumatoid arthritis and their perceptions of blood work and how it's used. Obviously, well, talk about my disclosures. So I get funded by a lot of different entities for research. And this particular study was supported by Cipher Medicine. As we know, there's all this background about rheumatoid arthritis. It's a common autoimmune condition. Lab tests are important in RA, but they aren't the final word, right? It's part of the portfolio of information we know about disease activity. Things like patient-reported outcome measures, the joint count that a physician conducts, imaging. There's a lot of different information that's coming in to understand and monitor RA over time. But rheumatoid arthritis is not a disease like diabetes where you have one value like an A1C where you can track that and monitor that very closely, and that gives you kind of all you need to know or almost all you need to know about it. It's a lot more complex in RA. So what we really wanted to understand in this study was what are patient perspectives of RA-related blood work? And we also wanted to know, and as we move into this future where precision medicine is more available, where we can use biomarkers or blood tests to actually help make treatment decisions and help predict things, hopefully, we also wanted to get patients' perceptions about that. So the way we structured this was that members of the Arthritis Power Patient-Powered Research Network, a registry that has a patient governor group that has been around for about 8 years now and has an associated app where people can track their patient-reported outcome measures. So you're not just participating in research, but you're actually using it if you'd like to track your own symptoms. We invited people with a diagnosis of RA who had at least taken a DMARD at some point, either a biologic or a conventional synthetic DMARD like a methotrexate. This was a one-time survey with 27 different questions on it, different sections. We had more than 400 people completed the survey, mostly women and white women. These were all US based people, average age about 58 years old. And we asked about the questions about what did patients think that their rheumatologist was primarily using the blood test for? Why were they ordering these tests? And the vast majority of people have said, well, they're checking for active inflammation. And the rheumatologists are also trying to track for the potential side effects of medications, right? To make sure things are going okay. Then we drilled down a little bit and we wanted to know, okay, so which test do you think that your rheumatologist is ordering for ongoing monitoring of your rheumatoid arthritis? And overwhelmingly, about 80% of people said that it was the complete blood count, right? And that measures different things in the blood, hemoglobin, red blood cell levels, but it's used in some ways for inflammation and also to assess for side effects. What's interesting though is when we get into what do they think that physicians are using when they're considering changing medications, there was no big consensus, right? Nothing, no test emerged with the majority, but the most common response was none or I don't know. So there's it's kind of a black box. It's kind of invisible to patients. What are their physicians using when they're considering changing an RA medication among the blood tests that are available? And then finally, we ask patients, for someone living with RA, what is the most helpful for you in terms of monitoring your own disease activity? And what they said, again, no clear majority emerged, but the most common response, about 48, 49%, was the CRP, or the C-reactive protein. We also then asked a few more questions about this concept of changing medications or treatment decision-making. And we found that overwhelmingly, 91% of people were worried on an active RA medication, were worried that at some point their medication would stop working for them and they'd have to find something else. And then 82% of people said that they worry that they were going to waste time trying something that did not work for them in the future. So I think for all of us, who live with RA or know people who are living with RA and talk to them all the time, this comes up all the time, right? Well, I took this for a while. It was great. For a year, I felt, so much better, but then it stopped working and then we had to try something else. So it's a cycle that a lot of people living with RA go through over and over again. So about 90% of people, 89% of people were very interested or extremely interested in the possibility of a hypothetical blood test that could help predict the response to treatment that they would get from whatever that next medication would be. When physicians are prescribing a new medication for RA, they acknowledge that often it's like a coin toss. Like there's a 50-50 chance that this is going to work for them, but it might not work. So if we could improve the accuracy, or if we could improve how well we could predict whether something was going to work, that would be great, right? So we asked the patients in the study, what are the attributes of that kind of a hypothetical test that would be most important to you? So we looked at the cost of that test. We looked at the extra time it would take to wait to get the results of that. And we looked at the different levels of accuracy. The accuracy going from just a 50-50 coin toss to being closer to almost 100% sure, like an 85 to 90% certainty that you would have a response or a non-response to a medication. So what we found is that highly accurate results was the most important of those attributes. So overwhelmingly, patients were really interested in knowing, that they would have a pretty good chance that this next medication will work for them. Wait time was kind of the least important of the attributes we looked at, and cost was somewhere in the middle. So in conclusion, it's important that that people who are living with rheumatoid arthritis are involved in the decision-making around treatment, that they're aware of how these tests are being used so that they can better monitor it themselves, so they have a better comprehension of it. And they in general, they do know what these tests are being used for, broadly speaking, that they're used to monitor for active inflammation, to monitor for side effects. But of course, there's a big worry that treatments are going to stop working. So patients really would value a highly accurate test that helps them predict treatment response in the future. What's exciting, and to this last bullet point, is that there's groups like our organization, Creaky Joints, has created a patient's guide to rheumatoid arthritis tests and monitoring. Closer here in Europe, the NRAS, the National Rheumatoid Arthritis Society, has a document called Blood Matters that's really helpful to explain this kind of information. So I think in the future, especially as precision medicine and biomarkers become more important, we'll need more of this kind of material to help people understand what the tests are used for and how they can help shape treatment decision-making. Thank you very much.